I am so happy to have my friend back. I have not been on air for at least a couple of weeks, but that's all right. This is the Real Critic Roundtable where African American critics come to discuss, debate, and have some fun. Look, we can't even have some fun some days because we are so busy. But I was able to pluck KB out of like work hell to come in here and talk to her boy for a few minutes. This is going to be a short episode. We're going to talk about the new Marvel Cinematic Universe film, Doctor Strange. But first, before we do that, I am going to say welcome, KB.
Hey. Thank you for having me back. Looking forward to our discussion on the newest, MCU film.
And so before, but what we always do, and we can always still do this, is talk a little bit about the what you're working on, what you got in a hopper, because love, I know you've been busy, and when you talk about the TV stuff, there's a lot of TV stuff. Did we ever talk? We never did talk. Did we talk about 61st Street?
We
Yeah, we
did.
did.
We
We did. I
did.
was about to say because but talk about some of the things that you're working on and where people can check out some of the stuff because you be having some hot interviews. That's all I can say.
Thank you. So right now, out today, officially, as of a couple hours ago, you can check out my interview with two of the cast members from the new HBO limited series, The Staircase. And so it is based on the story is based on a true story. So it's based on actual, real life human figures. But this limited series is actually based on a documentary about those events. So it's a really interesting miniseries. I mean, I think what it did for me was kind of unlock my mind. I had known about the central character. I knew him as an author, but I do not recall this story of, his wife being murdered and him being implicated for said murder and the kind of he said, she said amongst literally almost everyone in the family. It's like a murder mystery trying to figure out if he really did what, they said he did to his wife. This is not a spoiler because it's an actual story and this happened years ago, but he was convicted. Right. And so it's really kind of telling this story is being told from a lot of different people's perspectives. And his family in real life and on the show are very heavily involved in the case as well. And so it is just very interesting. So I have a couple of cast interviews out now on Nerdophile, so check that out. And then if you happen to miss it, I did get to talk to the Robin Thede, and I want to shout her out as well. Obviously, she is also on HBO Max in that same family. And the brand new season of A Black Lady Sketch Show is out right now. It's on every Friday night. And she honestly was one of the best interviews I've ever had. I mean, we just had such a good
Wow.
time. And I just, kind of loved the opportunity to just be able to kiki with Black women. And so it was lovely to just kind of chat with her about hair, about makeup, about her legacy, about what this means for Black women pressing ahead. And, I mean, regardless of what happens in the future with the show, I still think that like 3 seasons of doing a full sketch show with, nothing but Black women at the center is a huge feat,
I,
and like
I
it's a dynamic legacy.
if I may, look, that is excuse me, a huge feat. Wow. It is. I What they do with this show, it's not always my cup of tea. I'm talking about from a humor perspective,
Mhm.
but from a power perspective, I'm all in.
Incredible.
I'm like 100% all in. That
It's incredible.
what 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 these women and I I don't want to say it put them on the map, but maybe it relocated them in a way because wow, I I I'm impressed by
Yeah.
what they do.
And I actually, I appreciate that you said everything is not your cup of tea. I mean, I think that's the beauty of having a sketch show, though, right? Like, there are some sketches that will resonate very heavily with you, and some that you're just like, oh, this really isn't my thing. But I will say over the course of the episodes, something that, in my personal opinion, you'll at least laugh once. You know what I mean? Like there's something for everyone to a degree. Like you'll definitely have a sketch that you relate to, that you find funny. So I just think, what they're doing in terms of, and even behind the camera, and in terms of having so many Black women in the writers' room to catch these nuances, and having such a dynamic, because the makeup and the hair actually really make the show. You know what I mean? Like the visions of the sketch cannot happen without costuming and makeup and hair. Like it just does not happen.
I'm just so glad that you're shouting them out because I was on a roundtable with them, so I didn't get the pleasure of your fantastic one-on-one interview. Look, I'm not even jealous. I'm like, you have been getting these interviews, and I'm happy because I'm like, and then when you say it was one of the best interviews that you've had, I mean, I'm kind of like getting a little goosebumps over here. But so of course my daughter would call in the middle of the show, so that would be no, I cannot talk to you right now because she called me about food. Now I want the food.
I
She,
mean, food is important, so I'm
yeah.
not gonna shade her. Like
She's calling to say, "Hey, Dad, the food is here,"
about
and
this
so
food. You
so
ready to eat or not?
I'm definitely ready to eat, but I'll do that later. But I want to say is that I'm really glad that you also talked about how there are some laughs here. Is that that when you watch Saturday Night Live, does everything hit? No, it doesn't. And so I'm really glad that you said that because it almost was not even a good comment for me to say what I said, that it's not always my cup of tea, because that is, you know what, you always keep me on my P's and Q's, girl, because that's what a sketch show is supposed to do.
Yeah,
It's supposed to,
it's variety.
right.
That's why you're doing it. It's variety. So I mean, shout out to them, and also shout out to Ashley, Nicole Black, who also is a writer on the show. She stars on the show, but she's also a writer on Ted Lasso. So our girl is giving you the range, and I love to see the shine also that she's getting now. And also they made, first off, Gabrielle Dennis, who I feel like needs to be in more comedy roles. I'm grateful for her on the show as well. And then they made Sky Townsend a series regular this season, which was fantastic. And of course, her father is the acclaimed, talented Robert Townsend. But Sky I have been following for years on Instagram, and she is crazy funny. Like just the way her mind works and the things that come up. So I honestly hope that the show gets renewed for another season. And I do hope when it does, that they consider adding Jade Nova to the roster,
Oh
because she's
wow.
also someone who is a wildly talented Black girl who I found first from her music. She's a dynamic singer. Like she has such a great voice and she puts out a lot of really good records, but she's also incredibly funny. And I hope that, they pick her up for the next season if they get picked up.
So this will be my last comment on this, but as it relates to the show, you talked about how they're just so talented from a comedy perspective, and comedy takes a lot of things. It takes the timing. You talked about the hair and the makeup, all that stuff, but it also takes some dramatic acting. And so the reason I want to say that is that sometimes when we're watching these things, we don't imagine these same people in some dramatic roles, but they had to have played these have expanded. They expand way beyond just being hee hee ha ha funny. Is
Yeah,
that it tells you that these are some actors, that they're good actors, and that they could stretch themselves in some other ways. And what my hope is that people who are looking at this is not just looking at them like, hey, I got a comedy coming up, let me see where I can fit this person in. Is that if they actually are looking at them as some actors and seeing where they might fit in some other ways. So
that's true. Shout out to that. Yep.
that's all I have. I am currently writing something for Variety. So like today, you talked about,
Hey.
yeah, you talked about how you had a work fire. I'm totally under work fire. I mean, it's like here, have it back, and you need to rewrite. But that's just part of the process. But I'm like, right now, I gotta go talk to my girl. So that's pretty funny. So as soon as I get off of here, the food is not gonna happen first. It's gonna be writing something. So
Well,
so
that's okay.
we'll see how that works. Hey, so you're really into the MCU. So this is how I want to work this. I want you to tell us what the movie is about, and then I'm going to tell you what I felt about it. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I believe that you're really the expert here. So there are going to be things that you be like, no, Reggie, I want to tell you what I think first. So set this movie up, tell us what it's about, and give us the context for how it connects to certain things in the MCU.
Yeah, so Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, it will be out in theaters tomorrow. And it is the second film of the Doctor Strange series. So transparently, I actually wasn't a huge fan of the first Doctor Strange movie, which I should say has happened to me often in the MCU. Like, I actually wasn't a huge fan of the first Thor film that much, but when it got to Ragnarok, I was like completely sold. So I often think that, like, just because you may start off a little bit slower with one of these kind of, I don't want to call them a siloed character films, but these kind of singular character films, doesn't mean you may not land where you are. So, like, going into this, I mean, obviously so much has happened in the MCU. We're legitimately coming up, like, it will be released tomorrow, and that is right on the heels of the end of Moon Knight. So the 6-episode limited series on Disney Plus. So there's a lot of things happening. Obviously, Spider-Man: No Way Home was like one of the highest grossing films last year, if not the highest. I don't have those stats on me, but that film in and of itself definitely opened up the multiverse, right? So we wanted to get into live action, multiversal, if I can call it that, travel. That's what we wanted to do. And so this film essentially is kind of taking that thought process and expanding on multiversal travel. So in Doctor Strange 2, like Doctor Strange, Stephen Strange is still living kind of the life that he's always lived, now that he is into the mystic arts, right? Like, now that he knows about the arts, he's fully embraced his time as Doctor Strange. He's no longer kind of like the arrogant surgeon that he was before. He's more of like the arrogant Doctor Strange in some ways. But what I like is that this film kind of softens him a bit. And so what we've seen kind of in the previous films is we know that Peter Parker had a relationship with Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man. And we all know, this is not spoilers, happened so long ago, he died. And so since then, what we've kind of been seeing is like a little bit of a mentee-mentor relationship between Peter and, I'd say, not just Doctor Strange, like kind of a few characters, but Doctor Strange is also one of them. Peter is still a child in a lot of ways, and so he seeks approval from kind of these adults who he looks up to and who also are in this kind of supernatural realm. And we see a softness kind of happen with Doctor Strange, not so much with Peter, but in this film with America Chavez. So this is the first, I believe, live action America Chavez that we're getting in the MCU. And it's really through her and her ability to travel through different, multiverses, through different universes at any moment in time, that we get the basis of this story. And so Stephen has to learn a lot about himself and the man he wants to become. And really at the center of this particular film is the question of happiness, right? And so I don't think that's necessarily a concept we've robustly explored in the MCU. With WandaVision, we robustly explored grief and the impacts of grief and how grief, can really transform a human. We still see the impacts of that in this film. So I will say this is the first horror build film in the MCU as we know it, in the sense of Kevin Feige, building up and crafting this. It was not scary, in my opinion. Like, I will say that, because y'all know I don't do horror. So it really was not scary, but there are scary. I understand why it's billed as a horror film, because there are like moments, especially for children, because it's rated PG-13. I understand, like, it could be scary for some people, 100%. Like, I could, me personally, and y'all know I'm a scaredy cat, I didn't have any problems with it. It wasn't scary at all, but I understand how it could be. I think through this, it's like, the script is really trying to tie in so many different things at once. So we have Steven's kind of, own personal quest and journey of figuring out if he's truly happy. And a lot of that is really hinged upon, his relationship with Christine, right? Like, we know from the first Doctor Strange, his relationship ended with Christine. And that makes sense. Like, it's actually quite hard for superheroes to have families, as we've seen in the MCU. Hawkeye is truly like the exception in the sense that, like, my guy has multiple kids. He has a wife that he's completely transparent with.
That's right.
Like,
That's
you know
right.
what I mean? Like, that's not something that we normally see.
Absolutely.
And
I like that.
Stephen is sacrificed. He sacrificed what could have been for, I think, that this kind of superhero, kind of journey. But the film is really, truthfully, just about him, Wanda, and America. And really, it's mostly about him and Wanda, because I feel like America is grossly underutilized in this film. I understand that we are just now introducing her in this capacity, but I will say that's probably one of my biggest critiques of the film, is that here we are introducing America Chavez, who has great power, but I also understand she's a teenager. She's trying to still figure it out. She doesn't understand just how closely her fear is tied to her powers. She too is like Peter Parker, kind of looking for adult guidance, and but I just felt like every single scene with her was about what she couldn't do, and I needed more. I'm like,
okay, all
girl,
right.
we need more of what you can do, because you can do it.
So I like how you set this up. I only watched 2, maybe 3 episodes of WandaVision. I didn't finish it. Not
Oh,
because I didn't want to. You know how we just get busy with everything that we have to watch. And my daughter, Carrie, who called me for the food, you remember just a few minutes ago, who called me for the food, said, Dad, you're making a big mistake by not. You need to, even if you're getting paid to do something else, you need to say forget it and watch WandaVision, because it will pay dividends. I mean, because it was just that good. My brother felt the same way. There's not a person that I've talked to who didn't love WandaVision. I
mm-hmm.
see Sam. Yeah, I see Sam made a comment when I said I didn't see all of WandaVision. He says, no. It's like, nah, I didn't see it, Sam. I'm sorry. I didn't see it all. So I like that I didn't see it. And
Oh,
because
really?
no, I like that I didn't see it for this film, because that means I come at it with a different viewpoint. And my questions are always this with a movie: can the movie stand on its own without you having all this background stuff? And sometimes what Marvel does is they try to connect everything, and because they try to connect everything, you miss a lot of the jokes, a lot of the references, and a lot of stuff. So I wanted to see, could this stand on its own, since I didn't see it. Not that I didn't want to see it, but I'm saying now that I'm there, I'm like, let me see. And I think they did a good job on a couple of fronts. I think they gave you enough of the WandaVision situation for you to understand what was going on between Wanda and Doctor Strange. I think enough, not all of it, but enough to say, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. I think they connected enough to the rest of the universe. Wasn't tight. I'm not saying tight. I'm talking about enough. The enough to the universe that you say, okay, I'm kind of seeing how this fits in. And by the way, I just want to say Benedict Wong. I just love Benedict Wong. I do. I When you talk about underutilization,
Yep.
I want
He's on my list too.
I want the Benedict Wong movie, right? So, but love how comes into Spider-Man, and love how is he's here as well. So 2 things real quick. This is an action movie. This is not really about happiness or anything. This is an action movie on steroids. And if you like action, in my opinion, this will have it all. You won't really figure out the plot, because you're right. The America character was not really fully fleshed out. Even the situation in terms of the love situation, they threw that stuff in, but there was so much action. I saw it in one of those 3D, not 3D, one of those Dolby things,
The IMAX Dolby.
where the chair is doing like this, and I had such a fun time. It's a really good action movie, And if you're looking for them to tie in all the ends and all that type of stuff, you're going to be sorely disappointed, is my opinion. I think that people who haven't seen WandaVision can go check it out. But I think that if you haven't seen WandaVision, you are going to miss a lot of the references, and you're not going to understand some of the stuff as well. But I did have a good time. And the last thing I want to say before I just let you go at it is that the CGI in this is phenomenal to me. The special effects, the creatures that they have, I was all in. I was like, look, the multiverse is like the metaverse where anything goes, and so I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it. I had a good time.
So you know what? I agree. It is definitely a big budget action film. I just wish that it wasn't at the sacrifice of some of the storyline and plot points. And I say this as someone who is going to continue watching the MCU in all of its iterations, and who still walked out of there excited about, you know, where the future will head and where we're going in this next phase, but still confused about where we're going. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm still excited about it, but I still don't technically know after this Doctor Strange film. So I had a good time. I agree with you, Reggie. I had a good time, but I definitely did not love it because there were some glaring issues in the plot where I was just like, now what happened here? And what are we doing there? And things just weren't they weren't explained well. And I will say this, it is very hard when doing a multiverse storyline, like from a writing perspective, to truly keep it all together in a way that is like easy for the audience to consume. Because time travel in and of itself is already such a robust concept, and then traveling through times, through universes, through timelines, and then managing like multiple individuals in said timelines, and then it's a lot. Like, it truly is a lot. So I do think for this to be kind of their first full foray into the multiverse, like I feel like we got pieces of it in No Way Home, and that was like part one. But for this to be like part two, and let's like burst it at the seams and like let's truly figure it out, because I think adding America into that mix is exactly why they did that, right? Like, she is the one who controls these kind of multiversal portals, for a lack of a better phrase. Like, she's the one who, you know, her powers are the one that are linked to it, and, you know, do that. But I just kind of feel like I feel like there were just some liberties in the script where I was like, huh, and people who people who are, I will say this, who are just kind of like avid MCU watchers may even still have questions at the end, if that makes sense. Like, even if you watched everything, you still may walk away with a few more questions than answers. But again, like I said, it does have me hyped to see kind of where we're going next. And I'll be honest with y'all, like, the schedule has changed so much that I actually don't know what's next. Like, we ended Moon Knight, we have this. I believe it's Thor. Like, I believe it's Thor in July that's happening, Love and Thunder, and I think that that's the next one. But I also can't guarantee that there's not another show in between, because it's just gotten so challenging to kind of keep up with the schedule. But I am looking forward to seeing what's next. And, you know, something that I will say is that this film didn't really feel like it pushed repercussions for actions, like, almost at all, right? Like, we spend a lot of time on Wanda, you know, trying to manage kind of this situation with her grief, and seeing kind of, you know, like what that looks like. But I mean, there are consequences, as we all know. If you watch anything with time travel, there are always consequences in time travel. Like, when you travel and you meet yourself, or you know yourself, or you use yourself, or there's always some consequence. And so I'm looking forward, I think, to seeing what the larger consequences of these actions in this film mean for the MCU. That's kind of it.
No, I think that you make another point. Rhonda said that she really liked this, and I sent her a link in case she wanted to join us. I said, hey, you can just pop on in and let's hear your point of view. And so when I say I didn't love it, what I want to clarify is that this is not, like, to me, a must see. It is a total enjoyable film for me. Okay. my rating is a one to four reels. And so if it's a 4 reel, that's like the best movie. I mean, like to me, it's like, oh man, this is just I'm giving this one a 3. Really solid. I'm recommending that people go see it. When I say I didn't love it, is that there are a lot of holes in this film, and and it does leave you with a lot of questions. And I'm not necessarily saying that you can't have a film that doesn't leave you with questions, because sometimes that's really enticing. You're like, okay, I can't wait to see the next one. But let's just take your point about some of the repercussions, right? I want to see what Rhonda just said here. So hold on one sec, because she's not going to join, but she's
She
going
just
to.
said it's fun and interesting.
Oh yeah, yeah. She said it's fun and interesting. So I I was gonna make a point, but Rhonda messes me up. That's what happens with the Chicago people. She's not Chicago anymore anyway. Forget it. Um, man, what was my
Don't play Rhonda like that. Now hold on.
nah? That's my girl. That's my girl. Um, I wanted to make a point about something, and I lost it. I hope hopefully it'll come back. But I, I want to make a to your point about uh man, you were making a point in the about the movie.
Yeah, about the repercussions.
Oh, about the
Like,
repercussions. Thank you. And so to your point about the repercussions, that's basic. That we are us mere mortals know that there's supposed to be repercussions. Now they kind of mention it, but there's a whole lot that went on in all these different universes that said that, come on, Michael J. Fox could have told you that there's to be some repercussions for time travel. Come on now.
yeah,
So
that's why I need to see them. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. And, if we will get into some of what those look like in Thor, if we'll get into some of what those look like in Black Panther, like I need to know, like, what are the long-term repercussions.
well, what's cool about what Marvel has done with the multi universe though is getting back to my comment that anything goes. Is
Mhm.
that now you can actually do something that you haven't seen in the comic books, because you can just put them in one of these other universe and be like, well, that happened, but maybe it didn't. I mean, but you could just do some really interesting things.
Yeah.
I do want to come back to the Wong character.
Uh, Grossly underutilized.
Go ahead.
No, to me, Wong is one of the strongest and fan favorite characters in the MCU, in my personal opinion, from everything that I've read. People like his sharp tongue, his quick wit, but also how he leads, because it is very different from Stephen Strange, and it is nice for him to keep Stephen on his toes and be like, "Wait a minute now, this is not how we do it. Let's do this, let's do that." So I appreciate it. But I felt like in this film we just didn't get enough Wong service. And I understand, really, again, like I said, this is a story that's supposed to be about Stephen and Wanda, realistically. I mean, because even though they toss America in there, I don't necessarily think that she was utilized that much. But I for sure think that, like, they just left Wong hanging. Like, we have so much that we can do with Wong. And I'm also hoping that we get to see an expansion of his character sometime soon. Like,
I would think Rhonda agrees. By the way, I would think that there has to be a movie. I think that I believe that Benedict Wong could totally carry a one of these singular movies by himself. I mean, obviously he'll be within the MCU universe, but I think he could be the lead in one of these, and I'd be very interested. I,
well, I would love, I mean, like, we saw Wong in the end of, at the end, excuse me, of Shang-Chi. And so, like, I would like to know what that means, like, I would like to see more of that on-screen partnership. And apologies if I mispronounce it. My mind is super fuzzy today, but I would really like to see more of him in that capacity, maybe even just really training him, because I feel like, and I don't say this, as a diss, I mean this respectfully. I feel like Wong is an elder, but in a great way. Like, he has a lot of
no,
wisdom. You know what I mean? Like,
the
he has a
custom
lot of
is. the
wisdom.
custom is you got to bow to, what you talking about?
He kept saying that, but it's true. He has a lot of wisdom. He has a lot of history. He understands a lot. And I just wish we tapped into him as a resource more, especially for these kind of newer superheroes that are, being formed along the way. Now, I will say, if my mind is correct about where we're headed, because I personally feel like we're headed into the Young Avengers phase of the MCU, where the kids become, like where we get into it, which makes total sense. I mean, these adults need to pass the mantle down to all of these young kids, but they need proper training. We can have Wong do some additional training with the younger crew before they kind of let them off in the wild, but we see that with Haley Stanfield's, Haley's the new Hawkeye. And then we have, even here, now we have America. Peter is still very young. Like there's a lot that we could do with, the Young Avengers, if that's where we're headed. And even, Shuri, if that's where we're headed. We have a group of individuals who are brilliant and talented. We have Riri coming, which we already know. So like if we're gonna keep this going, let's keep it going, but let's utilize Wong because
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad you feel me on that. So kind of wrapping this up is, we didn't talk about certain things because there's so much of stuff that they don't want us to talk about. So there are a lot of surprises in here, and some of them are surprises where when I was in the theater, people were like, I mean, like, and excited about, and so on and so forth. So I will tell you, there's a lot of surprises. What I wrote in my interview is this. I mean, in my review is this. I'm not talking about the surprises because we can't really talk about it, but I am tired of, I mean, sick and tired of the clip after the credits. Girl, if so, one is, I mean, I'll take the one, but just so people know, there are two clips after the credits. So what that means is credit, clip, credit, clip. Come on, Marvel, stop the madness, because
that's
that
how
is,
it always is.
I know it's I do they really think, here's my commentary. Do they really think that Reggie Ponder is sitting there reading those
Reggie,
read,
they don't. I hate to break it to you, but they don't do this just for you, honey. Like
oh,
it's a large,
I don't
a
think
large
anybody's reading
crew.
that. I don't think so. This is what I'm doing. I'm sitting up there doing something on my phone, just saying, I know it's going to come back soon. Or I'm listening for the music break, because at a certain time, the music's going to break to something. And then you be like, okay, now it's time for me to lift my head up. I'm not reading all of, and then for the special effects, it's like 2 days worth of those people, right? So by the time just go ahead and let me know what's going on. I'm tired of those, but I that's my commentary. I'd like for you to tell me, what's your overall thinking about this, where you kind of fit this movie in, and do you really, are you recommending that people go check it out?
Yeah, I actually haven't thought about ranking when it comes to this film. I do think if you're an MCU fan, one, you're already going to go see it, but definitely go see it. I will say, the surprises were not surprises for me, and not because I read spoilers. I genuinely was just like, oh, okay. I mean, because there's a lot of like fan service and fan theories that happen online throughout the year. And just in general, like you see a lot of things that may or may not come to fruition. It's just fan wishing that it would. So I was just kind of like, oh, okay. I mean, in my personal opinions, I again would rather see, and I'm looking forward to seeing, how the surprises and the reveals they do in this film extend, further into the MCU. So I'm recommending it. Again, I did not love it, but I also didn't hate it. I mean, it just, it was a film, like I still have a special place in my heart for the very first Iron Man. I think that it was just so kind of revolutionary when Kevin Feige opened up this door, and I don't even think that he could have really realize like or conceptualize how big it had gotten, just from that one film. So that's
Yeah.
always going to be one of my highest ranked ones. And I adore Thor Ragnarok. I think it's a really interesting story. And Taika really turned, kind of Thor around in a direction that I never saw possible. But I also think Black Panther is exceptional, and it's exceptional in ways that like cannot be touched and cannot be understood. So and we don't even need to talk about it. It's just an exceptional film from top to bottom, and there's so much culturally that it does for us that is just unmatched. And I also really, really, really like Shang-Chi. Doctor Strange, I haven't thought about the placement. Excuse me, Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness. I haven't thought about the placement, but I will say, even WandaVision, please finish it, because I do think it's a really great series. And so, I think what Elizabeth Olsen has been doing as Scarlet Witch, I think that I just think that she's doing a really, really great job in this role. And I will say personally, watching WandaVision is where I truly was like, oh, okay, like the depths and the range and everything that she put into that particular show, I think is her best performance kind of as this character. Absolutely, hands down. Like, I think it's just exceptional what she's doing. But I do think people should see Doctor Strange. I definitely, Benedict Cumberbatch, which, we talked about his award season this year and how, just truly terrible of a character he was in The Power of the Dog. But that's the point, right? I think that it's so lovely to see him have fun. And I think in this, he's still funny. Like, it's a dry sense of humor, but he's still funny, right? Like, he's giving you that neurosurgeon humor, like, for sure. He's giving you like a surgeon's humor in a lot of ways, but it's still fun. And it's lovely to kind of see him in this role, because I do feel like for him, maybe it's just an opportunity to just creatively be free and like have a good time and do some action and, switch it up. So I do recommend that people see it, but it is not without fault. Multiversal travel is very challenging. Give our girl America more stuff. Give Wong more stuff. Heck, give me some real repercussions. And Chiwetel.
I'm about to say, and Chiwetel. See, it's so much.
Chiwetel is back in. What was the point? Like, I really found myself being like, now Chiwetel, I appreciate your character in the first Doctor Strange. Like, I understand it, but it felt like he was in here in a tight squeeze. Like, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I went to a concert recently, and they had 3 acts. They had Imagine Dragons, Jennifer Hudson, and Bruno Mars. So Imagine Dragons went first, Jennifer Hudson went second, and Bruno Mars went last because it's the head act. Jennifer was squeezed up in there, had to do like 2 or 3 numbers in between and get it in and get it out, that you didn't get it all. So I know exactly what you're feeling here, because that's how I felt about Chiwetel too. You got him in here, and we've seen him before, but there was nothing that elevated that particular character. But talk about elevation. When you talk about Elizabeth Olsen, she has the MCU was really good for her. I
think it was a great thing for her to take on Wanda. Like, I don't know. I just think that I think that the MCU did a great job of making WandaVision a show. I think that was the perfect decision. Like, it was so good creatively. Mm-hmm.
Look. So we're creatively out of time, because you told me you got somewhere to go. I got something to do. We all got somewhere to be. Look, if you guys don't know, that's KB. You can find her on all kinds of. Where can we find you again, KB?
Just on Twitter and Instagram, the Lady KB, TheLadyKayb, and of course, YouTube through the lens of Lady KB. I am backed up, but I will be posting all of my previous work on there. But it's already out in the world, though. Just go to the sites, go to Nerdophiles, go to The Beat, aka Comics Beat, go to Complex. check out my work. It is out in the world. I'm going to get back to posting on my channel so that way it's in one place as a one-stop shop. But until then, you just going to have to go to all the different websites. I mean, that's
I got to get back to posting too on my own channel because it's just been doing a lot here. Hey, this is the Real Critic Roundtable where African American film critics come to discuss, debate, and have some fun. We did that. I want to thank my guest KB for being here, and we'll see you guys next time.